Hello, I'm Debbie Polachek. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be watercoloring with our watercolors pencils with on top of darker cardstock. Let's get started. Okay, in order to color on darker paper like I did here, you have to do a few steps before you can get to this, because the color will not show up on the green paper like it is. Using is Stays On ink, and this is the reason I chose this stamp set, because it has no lines in here for shadows or anything like that, and I wanted to choose where my darks and my lights were at. Okay, so I've started off here with in my Stamparatus because I want to do it, since the lines are so fine on this, I want to be sure and get a good line for my next step. I have Clorox bleach filled inside of my ink pen here, and it's straight Clorox. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through all my flower and just spread the Clorox all over the flower. Try not to get too close to the edges, because it will spread out a little bit and it will cause it to bleed onto the area that you don't want it. Now, if this was not light enough with one time of doing this, I could let it dry, go back and do it again. Now, since the leaves are green and I want to keep them green, I'm going to just do this part just on the part that I want the highlights to be. So this is going to be a shadow behind that area. This will be I like to kind of keep one side of my leaves in the shadow and the other one in light. So this will be the highlights here. The highlights are going to be here on this side, maybe a little bit on the other. The highlight through here, and then maybe even a little bit here, because the leaf kind of folds up and it'll hit a highlight too. A little bit. So you just kind of put the Clorox this time where you think your highlight should be. Okay. And on these little flowers, I'll do the same thing. I'll go ahead and put the Clorox everywhere, because I want these some sort of pink. Okay, now I can see that when I did this, I probably do need to go a little bit closer to the edge, and I'm not squeezing. On my brush, I'm not squeezing, but your brush might be a little different, and if it is, you be real careful when you squeeze this, because it can go overboard real quick. I'm just letting it flow out of the pen. These are some old Stampin' Up! Aqua painters. Now they have some new ones. They're a real nice set. They have a big broad one and some fine ones. As you can see, I just put a C for Clorox, so I'm just going to do Clorox with this particular one. Actually, when you get ink on something and you're on white paper, this will actually remove it out of that too. See how it removed it? Now it might not be a true color, and you might have to go back a couple times and do it more, but it does remove the ink. So I think it took that particular color off in one hit. So it's a good idea to keep one of these around anyway, just for that reason, if you get ink where you don't want it. Okay, now I'm going to go around and look and see if I want to put these more, and I do. I want to get this a little bit lighter here. Get this a little bit lighter, because I want that whole thing to be pretty pink. And I think I even want my leaves a little bit lighter than I have them. Now I'm going to go back for a third time and get these spots as light as I can. Some of the other colors, this is Pear Pizzazz cardstock, but when you're doing different colors, they each kind of fade out differently. Some have different undertones that are kind of harder to pull out. One thing I was going to tell you that I did do on this one, I don't have to do on this one, and the reason is because I was more careful and I didn't get it outside the line. It looks like I got it outside the line just a little bit right there, but I'm not going to worry about it this one. But what I did is I used alcohol markers to go around the outside of my edge here. And what I found, and the reason they tell you not to use alcohol markers on top of Versamark is because they're both an alcohol base, and alcohol markers will melt your Versamark and it can cause it to bleed, and it can cause a mess. It can cause a mess on your markers. But when I get involved in something, I got to try it out and to see what happens. You know, they don't always do like I'm supposed to. But by looking at this, I looked at my color chart here and found that the Mossy Meadow would be a good color, I thought, to go around here. And I tried it and it was too dark. So then I thought, well, yeah, it would be too dark because this is adding color to what already is colored. Only thing that wasn't colored was the spot that I got it in on. So then I thought, well, I'm going to try the Seafoam dark. See how much lighter that is? And it gave it a pretty good, little shadow all the way around it. And when I went over the Seafoam, over those dark areas, it bleached it out as well, just like if you were using the color lifter, because it's a lighter color, will lift alcohol markers. So that's what I used on that, the Seafoam light to go around there in case you do. But just try to stay away from that black mark as much as you can. Okay. Now, for his color choices. On this is all my Stampin' Up! Watercolor pencils. What I found is this is much softer than this, and I wanted it to be intense. So I'm going to go ahead and go with the other. Or you can go in with your, let's say, your dark color, and get the darkest darks, and I'm pushing pretty firmly on this area here. See, I'm trying to just basically cover up all the paper with this. Then I'm going to go in with my pink and push pretty firmly as well, and even going over that other is good. And I'm still pushing firmly because I want my dark to be kind of dark here. Now here where I want it light, I am barely pushing it, okay? And then the yellow, I'm going to put in this, by the way, this yellow is crushed curry. Because by looking at my chart here, I could see that I wanted the darkest yellow for the flower here. And since yellow is kind of a lighter color, I am giving that a little bit more force than I did that pinker color there. Then I'm going back over, working from darker to lighter, and hopefully that will be it for that petal. Now I can go through the whole thing and do the same thing, and it'd probably be the easiest for me to remember what color, and I won't grab the wrong color. So I'm going to go through here, and I'm going to go put all my darks as cherry cobbler, pushing pretty firmly on all my petals. Now I want that towards the inside of the flower is always the darkest. Underneath the petal is the darkest spot. Inside all this area would be dark, the darkest area. Inside of here, even let's see, where is the light? I would say the light's coming from this way. Even in here is going to be the darkest. Now our darkest dark and our widest darks would be on this side of the flower, because the flower is actually round. So the darkest areas will be under here. And our darker areas here won't be quite as much of an area. It will be still some there, but it will be won't be as much. And the inside of our flowers, since it goes down inside the like a little tunnel, it will be very dark too. It's always the center of the flower is the darkest. On the opposite side of the sun is the darkest, broadest, darkest. And even the dark is here, but not as very little of it. Okay, very little. So it's underneath this petal a little bit, underneath the folds a little bit. And actually underneath the folds, I'm probably more on this side. So wherever the darkish part of that is, will be a little bit of the dark, but very little. Okay, this is kind of a big dark area here. Again, because it's on, see, on this side. Okay, now I want to kind of go back and see. Now this one is cupped around this way, so this area would be a little bit darker on this side because it's cupped, and this would be darker here too because it's cupped over this way. Very thin lines here, very thin lines of dark here. Very thin there, very thin there, and a little bit broader here. Then I got it. Okay. Now, as far as the pink, now I'm going to go in, and again I'm going to do it more intense right next to my darkest red, and even go into that dark red some more. It wouldn't hurt a bit. And again, I'm pushing pretty firmly on this side for sure, and right next to the dark. And again, as I work back to this side, I'm going to get a little less of that dark, the darkest pink. I'm not going to bring it out quite as far. Okay, under here it's going to need some of the darker pink because it's in shadow. Probably could have stuck a little bit of the red under there, or the cherry cobbler, but we'll see how that works out. Now here I want to go ahead and start that real light touch to put the pink in. All around the edges for sure on this side. And here I'm going to leave some of the areas without any because I want to put just yellow on the tips of some of those. The yellows, let me get this, even over the pink here. This has no pink, but it's going to get just straight the yellow color. The crushed curry. I did it the wrong color. Crushed curry. We're at it, we might as well get these little rosebuds. We don't need to go in and do every little petal. Just look at those as a circle. So we're just going to put the darkest cherry on this side of the circle because it's in the shadow. On this side, and then put our little pink next to that, and leave a little highlighted area all on this side here. And then go back with our crushed curry. Now for our leaves, okay, I did use a little bit of the old olive in the darkest areas. The paper itself is kind of a middle tone. So wherever I want it, the dark shadows to be, again, which would be less on here, more on here, on this side. And then I use this is where I use the lighter Daffodil Delight on the leaves. Okay, this time all I need to do is grab my water pen that just has water in it and start again with the dark. Kind of put a paper towel here in case we need to wipe it off, and just work from dark. If you want to wipe in between, keep it from getting too muddy on the edge, you can do that. Start with the darkest darks, wipe, go to the mediums, the pink, and then go to the yellow. Here we have yellow and pink mixed together. Now again, I am not squeezing my water bottle. Our water is pretty soft around here. We have a softener, so it feeds through just fine. If yours doesn't, you might try adding a little bit of salt to your water to make it a little bit softer. Then pour it in here. That's what I would try to do instead of trying to squeeze it, because it's going to be awfully hard to squeeze it and get the right amount of water. You want it to flow down there naturally if possible. This one I'm trying to keep the lights as light as possible because again it's on the highlighted area. These are more in shadow, and I just drag the color all over the lighter color there. The smoother you can keep your pencils when you're doing the pencils on there, the smoother your overall look will look on your paper here when you get finished. Okay, here we're going to go ahead and go from dark to the light. And we can go just straight to it because we're kind of getting washed off in between that green paper here. Okay, look like I forgot the yellow there. Okay. Here I'm going to go ahead and take that green and put it inside these stems because I think they need to be a little bit darker. And I'll go ahead and hit the yellow on top here. When you're hitting it on that wet paper, it's real easy to streak it, but with yellow, it's a light color. I probably can get by with it. Just to add a little bit of the yellow. Okay. Now, you know me, I love that gold foil paper, but today I thought I'd try something different. And what I got to do my centers, you notice it's in silver, and I used the embossing powder to do that. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and dry this real good so I can use my embossing powder. Okay, after I dried it, I could see there's some areas here that I think could use a little bit more intensifying and a little bit more softer blend if I can possibly get that. It's always a good idea to get a good sharpener to do this so you can keep a good sharp point on your pencils. The sharpener will have like a metal blade that sharpens the pencil area. Those are usually on your better sharpeners. Like Sally's has one to sharpen eyebrow pencils that work real well. So here we are with the darker. Okay, where do I want my darkers to be? I think I need to blend this a little bit more, so I need a little bit darker in there. I would like this. I got this pretty good and dark. It was the first thing I did. I want to go ahead and make this a little bit darker in here. A little bit darker in here. Definitely a little darker there. The best way to see where you want your shadows to be, particularly when you're starting, is take a picture of this. Take a picture of this and turn it to black and white, and you will be able to see where you want your shadows to be more by doing that. So that tells us if we want to bring out the lights a little bit more after we've done it, we can go ahead and bleach it out and come back with it. Okay, now I'm just going to kind of, again, I'm making little circle motions this time. Not squeezing. Just let the pen do its work. Again, starting with the darker, going to the lighter. Clorox to make the brightest light here. I think right here on this little fold, maybe on the tip of this one. Let's give it a try. And this one needs to be a little bit lighter. This time we're going to use the Versamark re-inker to do our centers. And I'm putting just a drop on top of my block here. Next I'm going to take my stylist let's see if the pokey tool works and see if I can get enough of the Versamark for these. This one I used the stylist, the small end of the stylist, and I thought it was a little bit big, so let's try the Versamark, the pokey tool, and see if that gives us enough. I can't even tell where I'm at because it's so small, but my guess it's getting on there. Quite sure it is. Okay, then I'm going to take my silver Versamark, my silver embossing powder. And sprinkle that on top. So that's the end of our project today. This is all we're going to do is just do the coloring. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye-bye for now.